Hi everybody and welcome to Maths for Today. Today we're going to try and do something really cool but a little bit tricky. We are going to try and make our own graph. Now before you start this activity you are going to need your workbook or some paper, a grey lead, a ruler or something else that draws straight lines. So if you don't have a ruler you could use the edge of your whiteboard or you could use the edge of a book, just something that will make a straight line. And you're going to need some coloured pencils, okay? So today we are going to use Tallymark data to then make our own graph. So in the last couple of lessons we've looked at tally marks. We have collected data, we have looked at a story and made tally marks, and we asked our own questions and got data, so we collected it. This is the next step. This is going to make it into a graph. We're going to go through it bit by bit by bit, and we're just going to try our very best, okay? So, first of all, let's remind ourselves. When we are collecting data, so we might have asked a question, or we might have been looking at pictures, and we use tally marks so that we can remember how many of each thing there was. So, when we looked at the story Tally O'Malley, and we looked at the t-shirts, we counted how many different colours there were and we wrote down tally marks to remind us. We're now going to use those tally marks to make a graph. So I have already collected some information for you. So we're all going to use the same thing because that just makes it a bit easier. And I collected information about people's favourite animals. And I have made it in a little table and we've got our tally marks. So if you have a look here, it's our favourite animals. We know that's what it's about. There's a dog, there's a cat, there's a bird, a rabbit, and a snake. And these were how many people said they were their favourite animals. And I've used tally marks to get that information. So it shows 9 people chose dogs, 7 people chose cats, 1 person said a bird was their favourite animal, 3 said rabbits were their favourite, and 3 said a snake was their favourite. All right, we are now going to use this information to make our own graph. I'm going to do it on the computer for you, so it's a little bit different for me. You're going to do it into your book, so I'll explain how yours is a bit different, okay? So, when we're making a graph, there are some things that a graph always needs. No matter what kind of graph that we're making, we need these things. So, it has axis lines, which are the 2 lines along the edges of our graph, and that's what you need the ruler for. It has the categories, so the things we collected data about. So for us, it's about the animals. So there was a dog and a cat, a bird, a rabbit, and a snake. Along the long axis line, it has the number count, so that we know how many of each there is. And it has the data. It has how many of each thing there was. So if we said there was 9 dogs, then we would have to draw 9 rectangles in our graph. Now, this graph that we're making is called a bar graph. It's the easiest graph to make. That's why we're going to try it, okay? So here we go. We are going to start making our graph. And the first thing that you have to do is draw the axis lines. Now, you're going to use a ruler or something with a straight edge, and you're going to draw yours. I'm going to do mine on the computer, but it's the same idea. So first of all, I'm going to draw my axis line that is vertical, which means it goes up and down. So here is my pen. And because I'm doing it on the computer, I don't have anything to keep it straight. So mine might be a bit wobbly on this page. Not great. You're going to use a ruler or something to keep it straight, okay? So my vertical line goes from the top all the way down to the bottom. See how that line doesn't look very neat and tidy? So you, my friends, are going to use a ruler. All right, so I've done my vertical line, which is the one that goes up and down. Now I'm going to put on my horizontal axis line, which is the one that goes sideways across the bottom. And it joins up in the corner there, so I'm going to start there and keep going all the way through, and you go to the end. Now, my little picture of me is cutting the edge off. but I'll show you on the next page. It goes all the way down, okay? Who thinks they can do that? Pause the video so you can draw your own axis lines, and then we can come back and do the next part. Okay, step number 2. We have our axis lines, and have a look. These are the ones I did earlier, so they're nice and straight. They look heaps better. And we're going to put our categories in, which is the things that we're getting information about. So we have dog, cat, bird, rabbit, snake. And all you have to do is write them down the bottom. Now, this is where it's a little bit tricky. You need to try and make your writing the same size, because if you say dog and have it little, and then you write rabbit and have it really big, the graph is not going to be quite even. Because it's our very first one and we're doing it over the computer, if it's not perfect, does not matter, okay? We're just going to try and make it look super cool. Now, again, because I'm doing it on the computer, I have to try and write with my little pen on my computer screen. So my writing is going to be crazy. I'm sure you'll be able to do better than me. So here we go. The categories always go along the bottom on our horizontal line. My first one was dog. Okay. And then my next one was cat. Oh, goodness me. And see how I'm trying to make them a bit the same size? It's a bit tricky, but we're going to see how we go. Next one was a bird. Okay. And if you find this really tricky, you might even just write the first letter. So you on yours might just write D for dog, C for cat, B for bird. And then we would have rabbit. And what was the last one? Snake. That's right. Okay. When we go to the next page, you're going to see something amazing. Oh, have a look. Here we go. I have actually typed them in and put them in. And see how they're spaced out? That's how they're the same size. That means later on when we put our data in, we can make the boxes the same. It just looks neater. It doesn't matter if they're not the same, because as I said, this is our first ever go at it. Okay. So we have our axis lines. We have our categories. Next thing that we're going to do is write our numbers, and that's so we know how many of each one there is. And they go up the side, up the horizontal one. And it's a little bit crazy because it actually starts at the bottom and goes up. So we put a 1, and then we have a 2, 3, oh my goodness, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I'm going to finish with 10. So, same thing. You need to try and make them around the same size. If you have a ruler, you can even use the numbers on the ruler and match them up. That makes it look really good. But see how mine are all a little bit over the place? Totally fine, my friends. Totally fine. You need to go all the way up to 10. Okay, so same thing. You're going to pause the video and you're going to write those numbers down. Probably should have said on the page before to pause it and write down the things. Silly Mrs. Bennett. So if you haven't done that, you can pause and write your categories and your numbers and then come back for the next bit. All right, going very well. We're doing an excellent job here. So we have our axis lines. We have the categories. We have our numbers, so we know how many. Now comes the fun part. We need to add in our data. And you do it by drawing little rectangles or squares. Okay. I'm going to try and do it on the computer to show you, but it's going to be a little bit tricky for me, but we'll see how we go. So here was my first one, dog. And can we remember how many dogs there were? I think there were 9. Don't worry, on the next page when you have to actually do this, I've written it down again. So you'll have it there, you'll know exactly what to do. So here we go. I have to draw that 9 people liked a dog. So I will need to draw all the way up to that number 9 there. And I'm going to make it blue just to make it a bit exciting. And I'm just going to do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If you like, you could colour them in. Ooh, you would do way better colouring than me, wouldn't you? It's very tricky to colour in this computer. Just to make it a bit more interesting. So there we go. I did my dog first, and it had how many? That's right, 9. 9 people liked a dog the most. All right. I'd like you to do that just for the dog. So you do 9 rectangles and colour them in, and then we'll move on to the next bit. All right, it's your turn now. So we've done the first one all together. You're going to try and add the data for the next ones. So I did the 9 dogs, okay? And then next would be our next animal, which has cat. That's right. And you might choose, well, I would probably choose a different colour because that makes it easier to see. And you would do exactly the same thing. So let's have a look over here, and look, here we go, I've written it. So we know we've got 9 dogs, and this time we have 7 cats. 7. So I would go, oops, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and I would colour them in. And can you see how mine are not all exactly the same? They're all a bit over the place. That is completely fine. So if you do it like mine, it's going to be exactly the same. It's going to be super awesome. All right, so I've done my 7 cats, and then you're going to do the last 3. So you need to do 1 bird, 3 rabbits, and 3 snakes. Pause the video, pop it all in for me, and then come back for the very last thing. All right, we have all our data in. I know that you have done it. I haven't done it because I didn't want to give you the answers. You have one last thing left to make your graph perfect, and that is to give it a name, a title. Because whenever we do any work, we put a title on it, don't we? And this graph was about our favourite animals. So we're going to call it our favourite animals. And the title goes at the top. So you're going to write it along the top here, just like this. So our favourite animals. And I know that you are going to be able to write this much neater than I have done. Fantastic. And there you go. We have added everything. We have our axis lines. We have our categories, which is what we're looking for. We have our numbers, so we know how many. We filled in our data, and we gave it a name. So look at that. You have made your first ever graph all by yourselves. Excellent effort, my friends. And I'll see you next time for maths. Bye.